everyone, welcome to our second anniversary stream. Today we're gonna focus on The Witcher 2. But to remind you a little bit what we are doing this month and for the entire summer, this year, 2022, marks 20 years of CD Projekt Red Studio. So we started with The Witcher 1 stream last week, and now we're doing Witcher 2, next week The Witcher 3. Also, you can check 20 years of cdprojectred.com website, where you can find some trivia, some challenges with cool prizes, as well as an invitation to our community gathering next month. So please go check it out. It's really cool things are gonna be happening this month. My name is Alicja. I'm gonna be your host, and we have Mikołaj Szwed, the Localization Director, with me.
Yes, hi.
And also off-screen, we're gonna have Sebastian Siejka playing The Witcher 2 for us, as you can see on the screen.
And also under the table, also off-screen, is Rosa, my dog. So if she disconnects any cables during the stream, sorry for that.
Yeah. Let's hope it doesn't happen, but you know, dogs are gonna be dogs.
Yes.
So today we're gonna be playing the quest that I think every one of you have been cursing over a lot. Because it's gonna be the Kayran quest, obviously.
And I chose that.
Yeah, I know you just wanted to give Seba something difficult, very difficult to do.
No, I mean, it's a very memorable quest, because as you said, like, it was so frustrating for so many people. I still remember when I was checking out like discussion boards, the German one or the Polish one, there were so many people who were so stuck on this quest. Well, maybe it was not the best designed boss monster fight ever. And there were even people helping each other, so they were exchanging saves, like, hey, can you make, can you defeat the Kayran for me, and stuff like that.
I actually remember that, because I had issues with Kayran as well, and I saw that people were, okay, so this is the save after Kayran fight, you can just load it and,
yes.
and continue playing the game.
Yeah, that's why when you ask me about like a piece of the game, which I have in my memory, so Kayran quest was something I instantly popped into my mind.
I think if someone played The Witcher 2 and he doesn't remember anything about the game, the Kayran is like the only thing that they remember.
But I really do like the monster design as well. You know, this big thing with tentacles. It was like I mean, at the time, like, we also had the dragon in The Witcher 2, but like Kayran was like this massive beast, and I really liked it back in the days.
Like Cthulhu.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we will see how Sebastian does, but before we actually fight with Kayran, we have some quests to do. So maybe let's talk. You are the Localization Director.
Yes.
So can you talk us through what your job entails?
Localizing. No, in short, so localization is not locations, as some people actually might think. Localization basically deals with preparing a product, like in this case, the game, to be released in different regions. It sounds maybe a little bit convoluted, but like in very simple terms, we take care of the translations, we take care of the voiceovers, so recording the actors, and localization QA, so everything that's connected with like with the text and the VOs in the game.
Okay, but you mentioned translations, and from what I understand, localization is not exactly one-to-one to what translation is.
It's a very difficult thing. I'm actually teaching some localization courses on the Warsaw University now, and it's also discussed there that there is no clear distinction between those two terms, because like localization is broader in a sense that like it's not only translation but also like the voiceovers. But for example, localization is also adapting region-specific things. Simplest thing, like if you open even a menu here in The Witcher and you have like the meditation clock, for example, the Polish or the German clock will be 24 hours, but the English one is 12 hours AM, PM, right?
Course.
So these are those simple things, or measurements, whether you use a dot or a comma when you do numbers, such simple things. But also fonts, for example, different fonts for different languages, and all this kind of things that go with the language language and also the cultural differences that are in specific regions. Right?
Okay, wow. So that's a lot of work for the game to sound good in that many languages.
Yeah, and look good, right? So, for example, we don't have Arabic in The Witcher 2, but for example, you have languages that go from right to left, for example, which is also like another challenge to actually have it look good on the screen, right?
Or like we have German, when the words could be super long and not fit into some boxes.
Yeah, actually, that's true. German is an example, but also Hungarian has a very, like usually very long words, but even Polish. So it's always like we work very closely with the UI designers, and of course, it's always like the decision. Okay, so if one language out of 18 doesn't fit, we try to find like something that's shorter in the language. But if 17 out of 18 don't fit, then it's for the UI designers, okay, make the text smaller, box bigger, whatever, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So which languages do you do usually the most on your workday? Like English, Polish, German, is that?
Well, basically, I was hired as the junior localization coordinator with German. So I'm actually speaking German fluently, and the German version was my baby. And actually, since those 12 years I've been here, I've taken care of all the German versions of all our games. But I've also been responsible, for example, for the Polish VOs for The Witcher 3 and the expansions as well. So, and of course, I've been working with all the other languages as well, even though I don't know them. So it's actually funny because, for example, people from my team, like I don't have a team that speaks all the languages that we're localizing into. But it's funny because even though you don't speak a language, when you work long enough with, for example, voiceovers, actors, etc., you can still distinguish whether, for example, an actor in Korean sounds good or acts good or not, even though you have no idea what they're saying. So, like, just solely based on the emotion that they have to convey, you can hear it out, right?
Okay, wow, that's super interesting. So you started like 12 years ago.
Yes.
That was before The Witcher 2. Was it a lot different than right now, CDPR?
Oh, yes, it was a lot different. So I joined shortly after the vertical slice for The Witcher 2. It was this short demo with this part of actually this act in Flotsam where you go with Triss, you have this spell, you actually go to the ruins, you have this bath with her, etc. And yeah, the company was super small, like when you compare it to nowadays. It was like 80 people.
Wow, and now we have like over 1,000, 1,200, I think.
It's totally different in the sense that, like, back in the days, even though you weren't working with some of the people on an everyday basis, you knew everybody. You knew everybody from the face, you knew what they were doing, etc. It's not the case anymore, but it would be hard with 1,000 people, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And like in terms of space, we occupied much less space in the building.
Yeah. Like it's hard to explain because like I would need to say, but for example, nowadays the place that was the whole company is just like 3 departments, right? So there was like this corridor. We had like 2 conference rooms in the middle, and then rooms all around, and that was the whole company. Like, for example, the back office was 1 person. So HR, recruitment, administration was one person.
All in one person.
Yeah.
That was a lot of work, definitely.
Yeah, actually, this is true because like when you start with a smaller company, you do so many things that like you wouldn't even consider doing, like for example booking flights for testers to come to Poland or helping get them visas or stuff like that, which I'm not doing anymore because we have a department for that, for example.
But you used to do that?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, I was doing that as well.
Well, a lot has changed since that. So you worked on localizing The Witcher 2, right?
Yes.
To German.
Among other languages, but German mostly. Yes, German mostly.
Anything specific that stuck in your mind, like some cool translation or something that was like super difficult, maybe?
Well, the first thing I did when I came to the company, I never played The Witcher period, but I didn't play in German even. That's even more specific. So I actually had to see the game for myself in German, and the first thing I noticed was like, why is everybody talking to each other like sir, madam? Like German has this kind of like formal language. I was like, oh, that feels so bad. I remember playing the prologue of The Witcher 1, and there was like this intimate scene between Geralt and Triss, and they were speaking sir and madam to each other. I was like, that just doesn't sound right. So it was like, okay, my first decision about the German version was like, okay, just get rid of it completely. And then I decided to do a completely new cast for everybody, because like the localization team was actually formed around back then, like the internal team, because CD Projekt wasn't really happy with how the localization of The Witcher 1 turned out in many languages, because it was actually done externally, and we as a company at the time didn't have any or very little influence over it. So that's how actually the team was formed, and I think it went pretty well.
Okay. So that's interesting. For example, as an English voice of Geralt, we have Doug from the very beginning.
Yes.
And for the German, it was completely scrapped for the since The Witcher 2.
Yeah. Sorry. Not sorry.
No,
Sorry. Actually, I'm very happy with how it turned out.
It's probably better.
No, English and Polish were the ones who actually kept, like the Polish cast was kept like completely, I would say. With English, I think only Geralt was the one who was kept, because Doug was so awesome in his role. But like we were looking for new talents, and we decided like, it was also the time that, The Witcher wasn't so well known, because nowadays I know that like people are very adamant, like they get very used to the voices that they like, they love, and every time you have to change someone, sometimes because there's no other possibility, like there's people like, oh, why did they change the voice? And it's like, because it's this kind of like getting used to the voices. So like you should be very careful when you make decisions like that. So I think it was the last call to actually do something like that with The Witcher 2.
Yeah, actually that's fair, because after that The Witcher 2 is more well known than The Witcher 1, and then The Witcher 3 happened. So
yeah, and actually so I remember when I was actually at Gamescom, and it was, I think, for The Witcher 2 Enhanced Edition, and we had this like booth in the public space, and we were showing this trailer with Letho on the ship, this awesome CGI, and people were coming in, etc. And actually half of them didn't even know what The Witcher was. So like it was still after The Witcher 2 release, so we really had to actually explain to people, so this is this game about this monster hunter, and like that. So like something that like we probably don't have to after The Witcher 3, but it was different times back then.
Now it's definitely easier. You say The Witcher and everyone knows that it's CD Projekt's game, or that it's a series of books, or like a TV show from Netflix. So it's mainstream now. But then it was, I'm sure it was much more difficult to even like market the game, to keep people interested, make people interested.
Yeah, that's true. Of course, Sapkowski was known in many European countries already, like German, or in Germany, or in Spain, or in France. The books were already translated. But for example, we had this issue that like for example in Italian, I think the first Witcher books were started to being translated after we released Witcher 2. So there was this thing that like the decision that was made by the vendor back then is, for example, not to localize Witcher into El Brujo or something like that, and it stayed The Witcher. But when the books came out, it turned out everything is localized, and we had to make the decision. Okay, so like, do we change everything in the next game, or we keep what was there? But we decided to keep it, because not all the books were out. So you had to actually shoot in the dark in terms of like, will we get the same term or the same translation as the books or not? So like, for the sake of consistency, we decided like, okay, let's just leave it like it was in Italian.
So like you said that The Witcher in Italian is Witcher?
Yes, I think.
But for other languages, I think we mostly translate it.
Yeah. We have Zaklinacz, Wiedźmak, Brujo, Bruszo, Sorceleur, Hexa, etc. And I think, The Witcher is very nice to localize, basically, because it's like, of course, it's rooted in European culture. It's a mix. It's not it has Slavic influences, but also like Dutch or Germanic, etc. And it's very nice because you have all those names that mean something, right? And I see no reason why shouldn't we localize it into the local languages to actually bring people closer. Like, you know, always find the respective term. Sometimes it's difficult to find, especially if it's rooted, for example, in the Slavic mythology. But it's always big fun to actually find some terms in other languages that actually convey the same thing, right? So I really like that about The Witcher.
Yeah, that's a nice rule because, for example, in Cyberpunk, a lot of stuff is in English and it's kept in English in other languages.
Yes, and I think it's fine because Cyberpunk has like a setting set in a specific time, in specific place in the US, in California, and it wouldn't make sense to, you know, localize Nocne Miasto or Nachtstadt or something. Yeah, it's like, it doesn't make sense.
No, it makes sense because it is actually in the USA, I mean, New USA.
Yeah, and of course, this is a thing that, one of the things that we always have to think about when we start localizing a new game or a new project is like, okay, how far should we go with the localization? Will it sound good in other languages when we do this, or don't do this, right? So it's not like a specific set of rules that you have to apply to each and every project. Every time you have to think about it. Okay, so this will be a nice thing to do, or maybe it's better to just keep it as it was in English, for example. Yeah.
So, for example, did you keep something in The Witcher 2, let's say, in German or in Polish, or is? Or actually, maybe that's actually, we should start with another question, because I know that people often ask that, are the games made in Polish or in English?
Yeah.
What's the first language?
It is Polish, actually. It is Polish. Our writing team is Polish, has always been Polish. And then the game is adapted into English and from English to other languages. Okay. Actually, German was an exception in The Witcher 2 because it was actually done from Polish directly. But then I decided to do it like in the next game, there, like all the other languages. But speaking of that, we always try in the localization team to make all the language versions sound as if they were the original one. So like every time when I see discussions, you know, on the internet, oh, it doesn't sound like the original. Original meaning what? Polish, English? What do you mean? Like, and the fact is that many people just don't get the fact that like we're always more harsh when we actually play the game in our native language, because we hear more subtleties which we don't hear, even if you speak fluent English and you think like, oh yeah, I'm on super advanced level, it's still a little bit different from being a native, and basically there's a lot of things that just, you know, get lost in the hearing, and also people get used to the voices. Even I have that. Like, for example, if I play the game for longer in one language and then I suddenly switch to another, it's like, oh my god, it sounds so weird. Like all the characters are so, you know, the voices just don't fit, and then you need like a couple days to get used to it. It's like, oh no, okay, yeah, it's good. So it's a normal thing, and like people should really try to try our games in their local languages with their head open, like, right? Because this is something that like most people don't even think about when they play, that there might be this bias that they have, right?
Yeah, I really recommend that. I played all of our games in Polish, and it's a really great job on this end. Now when I watch some YouTube videos, or I hear, even now, when I hear it in English, it's a little weird because I'm used to Polish, right?
Yeah, that's how it works. And even me as a, let's say, professional who actually deals with that on an everyday basis, I still have that. It's a normal thing. I don't know, it's maybe biology or psychology, I don't know how to call it, but there's definitely some scientific reason for that, so yeah.
Okay, cool. So how did it look? How did you get the job in CD Projekt?
Oh, that's another another difference. Like when you consider how now the recruitment looks like, because actually the job ad was just posted on Pracuj.pl, which is like this super regular mainstream website when you know look for a job in a bank or in an office somewhere, and there was like
or in a store even.
Yeah, exactly. And then it was like boom, CD Projekt, and it wasn't actually me who found the job ad. It was a friend of mine. So hi Marta, thank you very much. And I wasn't even looking for a job back then. But like I always been a gamer. I always loved games. And even though somehow the hype about The Witcher just like, you know, I wasn't like part of it, I thought to myself, well, I need to try. I need to try. It sounds so fascinating. I was working as a translator back then, so when I came to the first interview totally overdressed, you know, in a suit, you know. Yes. So you come, you know, with this fancy suit, etc., and then you look at all those people in t-shirts and sweatpants. It's like, okay, no, okay, I did something wrong, right? So and of course, like I was being honest. I actually didn't. And neither did I play The Witcher. I didn't even read the books. And the fun fact is I was the only person in my family who did not read The Witcher.
But they're classics.
I know.
You're Polish and you didn't read The Witcher.
Yeah, I know. Like, I don't know. Well, let's not dwell on it. Okay, but like at the moment I got the job, like I took all the books from my brother and I started. No, I actually bought them. But like I started reading them. It was like 3 weeks until I was starting the job, so I actually read through all of it, which was good because I had everything super fresh in my head. So I was, you know, this doesn't fit. This is not correct, etc. So no, I really enjoyed the books. Like I don't know why I didn't read them earlier. So I was really hooked. Well, the ending was could be better, but
a little weird, right?
Yeah, it was kind of weird.
But we fixed it with The Witcher.
No, it wasn't about this. It was more about Geralt Hansa. It was like you have all those characters that you're so invested in, and then it's like boom, 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 all dead, and it's like.
Oh, but we resurrected.
Yeah, some of them, at least. Yeah.
And gave them the second life.
Yeah, but I read the books and I started. So basically, you know, we have now those onboarding procedures. Like people for 2 days are being taught about this. You know, what the company is, what we do, where's what, etc. And for me, it was like, okay, so here's your desk, work. And I was like, okay, so so my former boss at the time, Didi, said, like, okay, so just install The Witcher and play it in German and, you know, see it for yourself. And then, you know, and I think I was playing The Witcher for like a week or so before we slowly started going into other things.
That's a very nice, like, beginning of work.
Yeah, it's like what the people say, just join game dev because all we do is just play games, right?
I wish.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay, so we went through like translations, your beginning. So maybe you can tell us something about the voiceover sessions, or like how do you choose the voiceover actors? Do you participate in the castings?
Yeah, actually, I have to say this is my favorite part of the whole job. It's kind of like. Being this coordinator or project manager, or even now, like when I'm the director, it's still something that I really look forward to, because it's like our job is kind of like a combination of like being this kind of like producer role. So it's more like, you know, being organized, having spreadsheets and formulas and keeping track of stuff. And then there is the creative part, and the VOs are actually the most important, because like we both, for example, read through the translations. So we improve the translations. We are in contact with the translators. For example, if you don't like a term, how it's translated, we discuss them. Hey, maybe we'll find some better way to express it. And then the VOs recordings is the second thing. So you have to find the actors, and of course, this is the whole process that like you need to basically find have the reference materials. So like visual materials, like concept art or 2D models or 3D models, whatever is available at the time, because it's pretty early into the project. And then you have the descriptions from the story team, what the character is about, like very quickly what the plot of this character is, what are her features, the way of speaking. Sometimes we always ask the story team to provide like references from other media, right? Someone from a movie or a series that could resemble the character that we are looking for. And then we need to take like dialogue. Usually it's not final, it's just some iteration of the dialogues, and find sections or scenes that actually are very, how to say, they reflect the character very well.
Okay.
So, for example, if someone's, I don't know, sad all the time or moody or aggressive, it should be in the casting side, because we actually need to see whether the actor is able to pull off the whole range of emotions. So it's called a casting site. So and then we send it all to the studio. And yeah, something like the process is different was different in different projects. But for example, now we are asking for pre-tapes. So basically, the actors record themselves, or sometimes we get database samples. For example, 8 or 10 per characters that we're casting, and then out of those we choose 4 that we invite to the studio. And then in the studio we actually record this dialogue, those casting sites, with the director, and we usually take also part in those recordings. And after it's done, we get the files, and then it's like the moment that everybody's interested in localization because everybody wants to say something about the actors, right? Especially Polish and English, because most of the people know those languages. So we usually, make this spreadsheet and we send the materials to the story team, to the game director, to the quest director and stuff, and we gather feedback. And it's, and then either we find someone or we don't. Especially for the main characters, it's like we don't want to compromise. So, for example, if nobody is meeting our expectations, we ask for more actors to come in to actually find the perfect candidate. And and then we choose the people. And then we can start recording. Of course, this kind of castings are only happening for the main characters. So, like in a game like Witcher 2, there were like, I don't know, 10 characters maybe, which were cast like
so
that. Like the ones that were cast completely from scratch. So like Geralt, Dandelion, Zoltan, Triss, Letho, Henselt, Foltest, Yorveth, of course, Roche, and I can't remember who else, right?
Okay, so but for example, I know that sometimes we have our own employees in the game. Do we sometimes record their voices?
Yeah, we do that sometimes. I'm not in The Witcher 2 actually, but I'm in The Witcher 3 in the Polish version. That's my role of my life. Oh, Karen is appearing.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's like
we got to focus on on it, to see what's happening.
Yeah, so this scene has been added actually in the enhanced edition of The Witcher 2. It wasn't there in the base game, I remember.
This is the first time we're seeing Karen, right?
Yeah, and Sheila will now, exactly, come in and zap it. So it's our first meeting with Sheila as well. So coming back to the topic, we actually invite people sometimes. There are some people from the story team, Cyberpunk, for example. I'm also in Gwent, one card. So like we always find some small roles and then we try ourselves, behind the mic, which is not as easy as you might think.
I mean, I assume I always like recordings. I hear my voice. I'm like, nope, I don't want to hear it anymore. And now you have it like forever in Witcher 3.
You have to get used to the sound of your voice when it's recorded. For example, in The Witcher 3, I'm actually playing a hobo that harasses Rosafar Atre in the minor quest, and it was actually we pitched down the voice a little bit to sound a little bit more hoarse and stuff like that. So yeah.
I actually remember that we had one picnic where everyone from the company who wanted to participate was asked to just come over and scream.
Yeah.
And we're like, I don't know, somewhere in the background of some Gwent card or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So but that's actually sound design. More so to say. But I remember. Sorry, that's a Witcher 3 thing, but like I have to say that. So there is one role I spoke was like some random vendor. It's like 3 or 4 lines. And then it turns out that the vendor is placed at the entrance to the crow perch. So basically every time, every player, when they enter crow perch, they hear my voice when I say like turtle stone, bezo or something like that. I don't know. I'm peddling some like magic shit or something. And it's like, you can hear me quite often in the Polish version.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. That wasn't the plan, but it turned out to be like that.
Nice. We also sometimes put like our community people on some, maybe not even as voiceovers, but just their names to like put homage to them. So it's cool that we also have the employees there.
Yeah, and also the faces.
Yeah, faces as well. In The Witcher 2, I'm not sure if we have some.
I think definitely we have some that are legacy from The Witcher 1 because we have yeah, we have some character in the third act that he was there already in The Witcher 1 and he had the face of an employee, for example.
Okay, so going back to VOs, because I know that there's a lot of people who would love to be like in the next Witcher game or Cyberpunk. Is there like a normal person? Can they do something to like make it happen?
I would say just practice. Like, you know, I'm mostly dealing with Polish and English, so I can tell a little bit more how it looks like in the Polish market. But basically, studios are constantly looking for new talent because, you know, the bigger set of actors they have, the bigger variety, the better for them. So they very often hold like open castings, or even like you can just try and just hit the studio up with your reel, right? So you have to record something, like show that you're versatile, that you can pull off different emotions, and that you actually have the skill, and just send it to the studio. And I think like if you're promising or good, they will invite you to actually try out in
so
the
basically
studio.
not directly to us, but to studios who take care of that, because we don't do that ourselves.
Oh no, like of course we work with those studios on an everyday basis, but like this is such a huge logistical thing. Like for example, in Cyberpunk we had over 2,000 actors in all the language versions. So there's like over 100 or 150 or 200 actors per language involved. And like it's on the studio to actually call them, to cast the smaller roles, etc. Unless of course we step in because we want this person for this role, plus of course the main ones. But this is on the studio side. So I know we are getting sometimes, like I know because I'm getting this kind of requests. Like people write like, hey, I'm a voice actor, I would like to you know, star in your game, etc. So what we always do, we tell them like, listen, like we work with this studio, and you have to just give them a call or write to them directly and try there.
Okay, so
right?
guys, if you want to try your hand at being in the next Witcher game or like something, feel free to do that. Contact the studio, and then maybe we can take you. Maybe we can pick you.
Yeah, it's all about skill. It's all about skill. It's like, of course, people who have acting experience or they studied acting probably have a better shot at it. But like, it's not like someone who hasn't done that would not be able to do it. Especially there are some actors who are like naturszczyk in Polish, we call it. So basically they don't have any acting background or knowledge, and they're still very successful.
But
right?
even if you have no experience in acting, you can always be like an NPC, a vendor or something.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Okay, so I see that we are actually getting some questions from the chat, and of course, guys, we are live, so if you have some questions to Mikołaj regarding localization or anything regarding The Witcher 2, feel free to drop them. But I see that someone asks, I don't know if you know the answer to this question, who came up with lesbomancy and the Odrin quest?
That's on the writers. That's on the writers. Like, we're just humble servants. Like that was like that in the Polish script. So.
Okay, so you just get it. Oh, lesbomancy. What the fuck?
Yeah, but sometimes we have that. Like, yeah, we had this kind of like. We didn't get to this part, but like when you go to Sheila, you actually have an, I think it's still in the game, you have an option to try to hit up on her. And for some time, like one of the writers wrote something so inappropriate and so dirty, and we were like protesting. It's not because like, oh my God, we're so prude, but it wasn't like, it was out of the character. Like we felt like, okay, Sheila would never say something like that to Geralt, and eventually it has been changed. But like, yeah, I won't be quoting that. That's much worse than lesbomancy, I would say.
Sorry, guys. Okay, so you get those weird things, and you just have to work with it, and like, okay, now I have to translate it to like 12 different languages.
Yeah. Well, of course, like if we feel that something's really not okay, it's not like a one-way street. We also give feedback to the story writers, because very often, like writers are usually assigned to specific quests, right? And we, as a localization, when we start localizing the content or reading the translation, we usually read we have to read everything from the beginning till the end, because we have to prepare for the recordings. And sometimes we encounter things that just don't match between the quests, which for a writer maybe is not so visible. And for example, it's still this time in the production that we're not able to conduct like a full review of the game, and you cannot see the connections yet. And we reading through those scripts, through the quest, we see, hey, like this person said this in this quest, but it contradicts with what they said like 2 quests earlier, because it was written by 2 different story writers. And it's of course normal, and it happens in a game of a big size, that like you have to find this kind of like plot holes and mistakes and fix them.
So how do you, when you are going through the script, do you sometimes, for example, print it out? Because I remember there was this picture, I think it was of Cyberpunk. Yeah, it was like basically this
no, it
big.
was like...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, well... No, well, basically we rather not do it because we're eco-friendly and stuff. But like I think Japan is like on the traditional side, and the voice actors like to have their script printed there. Why? I don't know, but yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's easier to take notes. Like I remember, if you want to highlight something with a highlighter, it's easier to do that on paper, I guess.
Yeah, but like no, it's like our scripts are in Excel because they contain a lot of metadata. So basically, in order to actually be able to record the dialogues so that they actually make sense, you have to have retain the structure of the dialogue. So you have to see who's talking, to whom they're talking. For example, we have section comments which explain what the scene is, what the mood is, etc. When does it happen? Where does it happen? And then we have director's comments. So each line has a indication of the emotion that the actor should convey for a given line, right? And then we have the line and then the choices, and we have also hyperlinks because in The Witcher and Cyberpunk, all our games, we have this branching dialogue, this non-linear thing. And in order to actually be able to record it correctly, like people need to be able to follow the structure of a dialogue, because it's not always, like you cannot have it like chronologically always in the script.
Of course,
so those hyperlinks are very useful.
So I guess it was pretty difficult with having 2 paths in The Witcher 2, like Roche or Jorved, or?
No, it's more difficult when there are branching within a dialogue.
Oh, okay.
So for example, you have like 3 different options, and then also like whatever your character says also depends on, for example, choices that they made earlier. So basically from the quest point of view, there are like so-called facts, flags that basically mark when you make a decision somewhere in the game. A flag is marked, okay, the character, like the player has made this or that decision. Okay. And in some dialogues, the facts are used to actually follow the dialogue in a different manner depending on what you did like 10 hours earlier.
Okay,
right?
wow.
Like the perfect example of this is like the Yennefer dialogue from Witcher 3 from Skellige, where you talk with her what you've done in different hubs, because you could have done everything, you could have done nothing, you could have done only some of the quests, and each of this version of the dialogue needs to make sense, for example. Yeah.
Oh, so that's
it's challenging. It's
definitely
challenging. Yeah.
And having it all in Excel, I assume it's gonna be very, very long Excel sheet.
Oh yeah, like both in The Witcher and in Cyberpunk, like when you try to export the whole game, like Excel just doesn't handle it anymore. Like it's like 20 megabyte or 30 megabyte big file, and then it takes like 5 minutes or 10 minutes to open. So you have to chop it into smaller pieces so you can actually work on it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's huge.
Nice. Okay, so speaking of choices, as we are on The Witcher 2, which path did you choose? Because this is the question that everyone always asks.
I think Jorved.
Jorved?
Yeah, I think Jorved. Yeah, but like I really like the quest with Sabrina's curse as well. It was also quite cool. But like Saskia and Vergen and like this whole atmosphere of this rebellious town, etc., was like nice for me. And the troll, of course, the troll quest. It's cool in Vergen. Yeah. Oh, I love the trolls. Trolls are always so fun to record. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I see that we have some bandits, and I know that Sebastian was actually training and trying to kick them off the cliff. So
yeah.
let's see if he can manage that.
Well, if you don't know what you
Come
use, just spam some quen and hope for the best, right?
Or art, and you can,
Well,
push
art
them.
is art, but quen, like, especially when you have it like powered up, you basically pretty invincible. I don't know, maybe we nerfed that in some patch, but I remember that I think just after the release, it was super overpowered.
Oh yeah, I know that this is one of the best strategies in The Witcher 3, so maybe 2 as well. Oh,
Well, he just doesn't want to fall.
he has very good.
No, yeah.
Wow. Congrats.
Yes, he was sent flying.
Oh, okay. So you obviously played The Witcher 2,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Any favorite moments besides the K-run that we are seeing right now?
Well, I like the battle with the dragon. It was pretty epic.
Yeah.
Well, the whole thing with Philippa, though it was super gory, but the whole thing, and it's cool that it had this kind of like continuation in The Witcher 3 that I really loved. Yeah, I remember that like one thing I didn't like, I always got lost in Loch Muin.
Oh my gosh,
I just couldn't just. Yeah, I don't know. Like I feel I have a pretty good like sense of direction in real life, but Loch Muin just completely defeated me.
Oh my gosh, I feel you. I could like go around and never find the place that I was supposed to go.
Yeah.
And in real life, I'm pretty cool. But okay, I see that we have another question from the chat. So were there certain scenes, concepts, or just words that were super challenging to localize?
I think so, but actually I have more stories connected with that from The Witcher 3. Like for example, one of the things was guślarz.
Guślarz.
Guślarz, which is like a very, very Polish thing. It has like this kind of like connotation. Everybody, like, or most of the people know guślarz from Dziady, which is like a super important piece of literature in Poland. And I remember, speaking of German, because I was taking care of that, I remember that the Germans first translated it as Schamane, like shaman, which is super generic. And I was like, oh, just no, like that doesn't work. And I remember I found like something that was a bit similar, and it actually existed in German language, was the Weidela, which is Weidelota in Polish, which was like the name for this pre-Christian Prussian priest, kinda something like that, and I felt that this kind of had like a similar vibe, like guślarz in Polish. But there are some concepts that are very hard to localize, and sometimes you have to just admit that it's better to, like, it's always the decision you have to make whether you want to localize something so that it's closer to the recipient in the target language, or actually keep it kind of exotic for them, so that they can actually look it up, for example, on Wikipedia or somewhere, and learn something. So and as said, like every time the decision has to be made depending on case basis, right? So.
Cool.
I remember Kejran had a different name in Polish during the production. Has been changed because for a very long time we called it Żagnica, which was Żagnica. But then I remember we changed it because basically Żagnica, that was described in the Sapkowski's books, was a monster that was completely different. Like it didn't have tentacles or anything, and that's why we decided to change it. But sometimes a person gets so used to the to a specific term, and we had that as well, that for a very long time most people were calling Kejran Żagnica because it was there in the production materials, in the concept art, etc. so it's hard to get rid of it. Or for example, Letho was called Rishon in our script, and of course it has been changed because it's too close to Roche, and we would have Roche and Rishon in English. That's too much. But like sometimes there are things like that get stuck with you because it's too late to change that in the source files, because it's too much hassle. So basically you sometimes have those obsolete names in the scripts. Like for example, Saskia was Tarma. For example. So, and you have to deal with it and just keep that. So
I know it's very difficult to like get used to something new. I know that talking with devs, basically no one uses quest names. They always knew like
301.
Q
104. Yeah. I think this is 104, 104, I think. No, 105. K-Run was 105, I think.
But like K-Run, I always thought when I was playing the game that it was kind of his name, not like a whole species of monsters.
No, I think it's like a species. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's a species, yeah.
Cool. Okay, so now we have a question about something completely different, maybe a little away from The Witcher. What is your favorite game?
Oh.
It doesn't have to be CD Projekt.
Yeah, no. It won't be. No, I don't know. It's hard to say. Like I have a lot of games that like made an impact on me, like over all those years.
Genre.
Yeah, actually, I have a very peculiar taste when it comes to genres because the games I usually like are either games with very good story, so it can be an RPG, action adventure, but even indie games, for example. I loved like To the Moon. I cried. But I also like fighting games like Soul Calibur. I played Mortal Kombat like a lot. So that's the second genre I like. And the third genre I like is strategy. So, for example, Paradox, like, you know, Stellaris, or, I love, how it's called? Not Cities in Motion. Cities in Motion as well, but like I started playing like Transport Tycoon Deluxe, for example, is one of the games that I've been playing my whole life, and every like 2-3 years I actually come back to it. And it's actually a game from '94, and it's about building railroads and bus routes and stuff like that. And I love it still to this day, right? So, but yeah. Like more recent ones, I loved Hellblade, for example, for a very nice story. I was really surprised with it. I'm thinking it's actually like I'm still interested in games, but I don't have so much time to play anymore.
I know.
So I'm trying to I'm trying to play like, you know, the big blockbusters. Also, like for example, for localization to see whether it's good or not.
So do you like do your research while playing games?
Yeah. I try to do that both when I play games, and I also try to watch, for example, animated series with dubbings. And sometimes I have this like, this is played like acted really well. I have to look up the name of the, you know, actor or actress, and then I write it down. And the next time we have a casting, and there is a role that like I feel would be good for this person, I just, you know, look
really
the
cool.
name. Yeah. It's like, so yeah.
Okay, so back to localization, because basically the question is, English version of Witcher follows typical fantasy convention when different races speak with different British accents. So dwarves talk with northern accents, for example.
Scottish.
Scottish, yeah. But we don't hear that, for example, in Polish.
No.
Why isn't Zoltan speaking Silesian, for example?
This is kind of like kind of peculiar because like these are kind of like cultural tropes that are just already established, so to say. And first of all, like Poland doesn't have like this huge variety of dialects, unfortunately, because of the war, and then, you know, the population mixed, and you know, there are not so many significant dialects, not like in the UK where you go like 30 kilometers further away and as if they were speaking completely different language. And again, it's also about like what does work or doesn't work in a given language. I also have this anecdote. I was actually thinking about that with The Witcher 2 for German, and then I came across like this stories about how atrocious the Baldur's Gate localization for German was, because they actually tried to do German dialects and it didn't go well and people didn't really like it. So like in the Polish version, we usually try to, especially in The Witcher, to go like in this kind of like direction of the stylization for like rural you know, accents, a little bit like, you know, this kind of like Eastern zaciąganie, or a little bit more archaic words, but also not to make it like ridiculous, right? So I mean, it's cool that it works in English, but it doesn't necessarily have to be done in all the other languages just for the sake of doing it, right? So we just think that it just doesn't work.
Does it work in any other languages, or is it just English for those different accents?
I mean, not like in such extent, no. But we always try to find like this kind of small things that, you know, if a given language has this kind of peculiarities, we really want to use it. Like that's an example from Cyberpunk, for example. But like we have some like Brazilian origin characters in Cyberpunk, and for example, in the Spanish version, VO version of Cyberpunk, they're played by people who live in the region where Brazil borders Argentina, because there are people there who actually speak this kind of like a mix of Spanish and Portuguese. And we wanted to record those characters with those people because they sound like, for Spanish people, they sound like, you know, Portuguese, like they're Portuguese, but they speak Spanish. Or, for example, we did that with the Japanese characters, that we tried to find the bilingual actors in the regions.
Because I think Hanako and Yorinobu, they were speaking the same person in English and in Japanese, right?
No. Saburo Arasaka is the only one that's actually the same in all language versions. But both in the English version, but also in the German and many others, we have actors that can speak both the local language and the Japanese.
That way. Nice.
Unfortunately, it didn't work with all languages because, for example, Polish was like an exception, because we like the diaspora of Japanese people in Poland is not big enough to actually find someone who's not only speaking fluently both languages, but actually has certain level of acting skills.
Obviously.
Because this is not only about speaking, but also making it sound good, right? So you have to sometimes compromise, but like, you know, it's how the world basically works.
Of course. Okay, so we have another nice question. On a scale from 1 to 10, how awkward it is to record sex scenes?
The sex scenes are actually usually not voiced. People don't speak in those. I know, but you didn't let me finish. But basically, when it comes to the moaning sounds, as far as I understand, they usually are done in house.
So we just ask some random person
not random
on the corridor.
person, not random person in the corridor, but they're like a call for casting. Like I remember actually the sex scenes in The Witcher 2 were voiced by my colleague from the department, Carolina, who was
That's also a nice
she was providing
legacy to have.
So basically, I remember that there were like girls who were being invited, and like I remember the story that like they asked the sound designer just to like hit record and then leave. So they could be alone and feel more free to express.
That makes sense.
So these kind of things are actually done very often in house. For example, oh no, we died.
Seba.
No, well, happens.
Okay, that's really cool. I wonder what other things we actually recorded in house.
For example, ads. We like when you go in Cyberpunk and you hear those like in the background, those ads for different things. Actually, these are people from my department.
I know Boris.
Stefan, Aniela.
We also have Christine from marketing.
Christine.
It's super weird, like going through Night City and actually hearing people that you know and work with on an everyday basis.
So we do this kind of small things in house as well.
Okay, cool.
It's always a lot of fun.
I can imagine. Okay, next question. It's like when you have actual names of the characters, how do you decide how they should sound in other languages, how they should be pronounced in other languages, or even if they should be changed, because sometimes the names are changed. From language to language.
Well, not really changed, but localized. Like in The Witcher, it's two things. One thing is we want to basically honor the legacy translations. So, for example, as said, in those regions where the books were released, we actually wanted to keep the consistency in the terminology. So, names like, dandelion, for example, or I don't know, like dandelion is a perfect example.
This is actually super interesting when it comes to dandelion. Like, why is it dandelion? Was this already translated into the English in the books?
I think he was like that. There was like 1 or 2 books released when we started doing the first Witcher, and it was actually dandelion. It was left like that. But like the funny thing, it's in each language it's usually different flower. For example, in German it's Rittersporn, which is also something different than dandelion, which is something different than Jaskier. Yes, but it's always like a flower name. So this is like you can see this kind of like what localization is. So like we keep the meaning like because it's a flower, so it evokes certain emotions, but it doesn't have to be the same flower, but something that just works in a given language, right? And also like when it comes to pronunciation, there was this question. So it also depends. Again, like for example in The Witcher, this is something we need to decide ourselves. Like for me, another example from German is like if I localize the names into German, I don't see a reason why anybody should call Geralt in German because it's why shouldn't they pronounce it German way? So it's Geralt in German, right? Just like Geralt in Polish, right? Yeah. But for example, in Night City, like Cyberpunk again, like we have Judy, Panam, and Carrie, and Hanako, and stuff like that. Well, usually you pronounce them as they are pronounced in English as well, right? So again, it depends on the project and it depends on the language. Because, for example, I'm not an expert, but I can. As far as I remember, for example, the Chinese always try to pronounce it like in English because for them their names sound so foreign that they want to do it that way. And we, of course, when we start localizing a game, there are 2 ways of doing that. Either we prepare like pronunciation glossaries beforehand, so we actually make a list of all those words that can cause trouble, and then we record them here and give it to the studio. Okay, so this is how it should be pronounced. Or sometimes we actually do that already when we start recording. So when the first time the word pops up, we decide, okay, this is the pronunciation, and then we save the recording, and then the next time we have this word, somebody records it, we have it ready so they can hear how it was pronounced, right? So the consistency is the key here, right? As long as it's consistent, then it's good. So
I guess like probably names of the monsters are pretty difficult because at least in Polish and English, they're mostly completely different.
Yeah, well, again, like you have a monster that's called Necker, and Necker is Necker everywhere.
Yeah,
but then when you have like something like, Zgnilec, Rotfiend, right? Like this is a name that carries a meaning.
Yeah, it's based on an existing word.
Yes, exactly, and there you can just make something up, which works in other languages.
So it usually depends on you. Like if you have a new monster in The Witcher, let's say, you can just come out with.
I have mostly examples from German, obviously. But for example, we had like this Botchling, right? This creepy monster from The Witcher 3, this unborn baby, and the German translators translated it as Mörkling, which was like, that just doesn't carry the meaning. And I actually decided to go with something that's actually very close to Polish. It's like a quite literal translation of Polish, which is Fehlgeborena, which means like poroniec, which is like the one who has been miscarried, right? So I always pay attention to this kind of details because those small details in the end make up the how the localization is perceived.
Okay. Right? So now we have a request. Can you pronounce Emhyr's, or maybe I'm saying it wrong, full name?
Oh, in which pronunciation?
I don't know. Maybe German. Maybe it would fit actually.
In German it's Emhyr, glaube ich.
Emreis?
Emhyr va Emreis.
Okay.
I think. Like, I'm not native, so I'm sorry for my, sorry German players. So, like, I always, in this kind of things, like, I really rely on the director, for example. But I know there was this discussion in Polish that whether it should be Emhyr or Emir.
Yeah, I know. It's still ongoing, I guess.
Yeah, I know. And I'm sorry, this was my decision. I made it that in Polish we pronounce it as Emhyr. I just found it more suitable, which a lot of people disagree with, but like it's been done.
Okay, guys. So Polish localization Emhyr. That's on Mikołaj.
That's on me. Yes. But it's so interesting that sometimes so small things you consider something so small evokes so many emotions
Right.
in the
You make
in the
one
fandom.
decision.
Yeah, and it's like I wasn't thinking like half of the day like whether it should be Emmer or Emher. Yeah, but like when we recorded it like that, it had to stay like that because of consistency, right? And we're recording all the places where his name is mentioned would be like a kind of cost expensive, right? so yeah.
Okay, on the topic of Nilfgaard, or I guess we can also speak about elves. So
Yes.
when we have like Nilfgaardian or the
Yeah.
Elder speech, does each actor localize, like if we're speaking Nilfgaardian, each language has their actors speaking that Nilfgaardian,
Yes.
or is it like
Yes,
for
they
everyone
have
the
to,
same?
and it's interesting because there are some actors that actually manage it quite well, and some that like really struggle with it. So what we try to do is actually to make it more or less consistent. So like especially those words that come up very often, like Enseed or Gwynblade or what else?
Isn't it Gwynblade?
Depending on the language.
Okay.
Or this kind of things, like the most important part is that it's consistent. But of course, like when you have this Nilfgaardian, like longer sentences, we try to come up with something that is believable. But the most important thing about like pronouncing this kind of expressions is that, oh, this is the scene with. Is there this option to actually hit on Sheila? Still in the.
Oh, let's see.
I don't know.
But I suspect we'll need to draw it onto the shore.
Leave that to me.
So Sebastian, if you can, flirt with her.
Something spectacular.
Believe it.
Yeah.
You'll do the honors.
The honors?
Once on the riverbank.
Oh, they're so chatty. Oh yes, it's like
wow,
there's
that's
magic
a
in them.
lot.
It's gonna say, oh, can we talk something about this side?
Going to work together. We should get to know each other.
Is that so? Very well.
Okay, we're going in further.
Yeah. Oh no. No. Okay. So it seems has been completely removed.
No,
from
but
the game.
maybe he's trying to, propose.
A threesome?
threesome?
No, come on. So coming back to the Nilfgaardian, the important thing is that the actor actually expresses it in a way that conveys the meaning. So sometimes it's very important, like for us to actually tell the actor, okay, so like the meaning of this is this, and it needs to sound like that. But as I said, like there are some actors that do it very well. Because the most important thing about those is that they need to sound convincing. Like you cannot make them sound as if someone is reading off the paper and struggling what they want to say, because this is not how a person who speaks a language speaks, right? They know what they want to say. So the most important part is actually make it sound as they know what they are actually saying. Right?
Okay.
But yeah, this is kind of challenging.
So the pronunciation, like Gwynblade, it sometimes can differ depending on the language.
Yeah, I think in English it's Gwynblade, right? In Polish it's Gwynblade.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
But basically, like, of course, Nilfgaardian is the same in every language. Like,
Yeah.
We
don't change
any further.
Although, for example, I think we also had Dwarvish, and I had this problem that Dwarvish, like both Nilfgaardian is based a little bit on Dutch, right? And I had this actually. Never mind. So Nilfgaardian is based on Dutch, and Dwarvish was also like kind of like Dutch/German, and they have this swear word, which sounds like Duvelschiss or something like that, and it sounds too German. And for Germans, it would be like kind of weird to see, or Duvelscheiß even in English. And we had to make a different pronunciation so that it doesn't resemble German so much, because it would sound just weird. I think that's why in German it's Duvelschiss, which Schiss is also like kind of Germany. Yeah. So.
Okay, I see that someone wrote that Peter Kenny reads the English Witcher audiobooks beautifully and does some great voices. Did you ever consider him as the voice actor for the game? Do you even know him?
Who?
It's Peter Kenny.
I don't really know. because Boris, you probably all know Boris,
Yeah.
our star. He's in charge of the English VO, and like I don't know the English actors apart from the main ones by their names. So I don't really know if he's somewhere on the cast in any of our projects. But like this is something that we can look into, especially
Yeah,
if
of
we have
course.
like some new projects in the Witcher universe. Sometimes maybe we'll probably look for new actors. Yeah.
Speaking of which, I was thinking, because do we have like voice Easter eggs sometimes in the game?
Oh yeah, sometimes. Well, voice Easter eggs, it's two ways. Oh, Kairan, my favorite beast. my favorite mini Cthulhu. But it's two ways. Sometimes we have like Easter eggs, meaning like that the actor who plays a role is an Easter egg already. Like Jesse, for example, in Cyberpunk, in this quest with Mr. Stad, or for example, in the German versions, we have the actor playing SpongeBob SquarePants playing Skippy.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
So.
and sometimes, for example, we have other kind of Easter eggs. Like, for example, in Thronebreaker, there was this. At some point, you had like a community person, like an NPC, who was in Polish version playing this kind of like song from Mieczysław Fogg from the 50s about rebuilding the Warsaw, because it was after the war and it was like yeah. And I actually tried to find something like that for German, and I actually found it, and the German actor actually sings the hymn of the Socialist German Republic, because the text just fits so well. You only had to change Germany to Lyria, and it was perfect.
Wow, nice.
Yeah. So if we find occasions to do something, and it's not always like it has to be the same thing in the same language, right? So some things that work in one language would not work in the other, right? So we try to find this kind of places for each language version.
Yeah, I also know, for example, in Blood and Wine, we had Man as Roach.
Yes, Wojciech
Mann.
Mann and Krystyna Czubówna, who was this kind of like there was this art exhibition of the pictures of monsters, and she was describing the monsters. That's a very famous speaker for documentaries, like nature documentaries, like Polish David Attenborough.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, so it was also a cool Easter egg. QTAs.
Okay,
People love them,
no,
right?
but he's almost.
He almost dead. Yeah, it's
1/3 to go.
yeah. So yeah, it's already almost dead.
Most of the tentacles, I think, are gone.
Yeah, he has.
I think remember about Irden, obviously. Yeah, I mean, I've played this game a while ago, and the thing I remember is like, catch it in Irden.
Yeah. Actually, it was funny because I really loved what we did there, because we had this very gamey, hint, like way of hinting the player what they need to do when she was like, Irden, catch him with Irden.
It took me a while to figure this out.
Yeah, exactly. And then at some point, like, if you're not doing that, girl says like, come down yourself and catch him yourself with Irden, because he's so pissed at her. And it's actually a cool move, because like even though it's like a gamey hint, you can make something more out of it, right? Like a joke.
And it wasn't obvious, because you don't get like a prompt on the screen to press Irden. You just have to like figure this out.
Every Witcher.
Yeah, the game is for smart people, apparently.
Yeah, no, I had very different pieces of like brain fart while playing Witcher 2, like.
No, but like it's like kind of like an older design of games where they sometimes, didn't really help the player figure out what to do, and of course, like the design of the games has changed since then. It's been 11 years, 12 actually.
Wow, yeah, 11 years now.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we see what we can loot from Kairan. And we're almost done, but maybe one more question.
Sure.
Did you meet someone like famous while VO recording?
Yeah, that's a sensitive topic for me because I'm always the one who actually takes care of actually organizing the thing, you know, exchanging emails with the management or the talent acquisitor, etc. But I never get the chance to actually meet those people because if they're VIPs, like those huge VIPs there for the English version, so who does that? Boris, because he's going there to record them. So it's like, but no, but I met my fair share of like very talented, very nice like Polish talents and German talents, and yeah, and I enjoyed it a lot as well. So it's always nice to meet someone who's professional, who knows their trade well, and they're actually delivering a great job.
And
right?
I also sometimes hear that they are actually sometimes even fans or like super excited about the game. I think with Cyberpunk.
Yeah. Kamil Kula, who's playing V in the Polish version, actually. Yeah, he was like, actually I cast him in Thronebreaker as Gascon, and I really liked how the job he's made, and I met him back then, and he told me that he's a huge fan. So when we started, you know, casting for Cyberpunk, I immediately thought like Kamil will be the perfect candidate for male V, and it's funny because actually he also convinced his wife to come for the casting, Marta Żmuda-Trzebiatowska, who came for a proper like normal casting like every other actress, and she actually got the part of Judy. So they were actually both in the game. So.
But they couldn't, you know, be a couple in
No,
the game.
no,
Sadly.
unfortunately. No, she wouldn't like him in the game, just as a friend.
Yes, obviously. Yes. Okay, Chad, don't you have any more questions? Because I don't see anyone sending me any cool questions from Chad. And I think we are almost done. Yeah, we have to give the quest back, right?
Well, of course. We
grab
cannot
the
finish.
reward, as our Witcher contract.
We were going to Loredo, right? No, it was Sheila. No, who else? The merchants.
Yeah.
Because
We've been at Loredo's at the very beginning.
Yeah, because I remembered like we had this DRM back in the Witcher 2, where when you actually had the pirated version of the game, there were two things. Like one thing was like you couldn't get off the scaffold and you always got executed, and the other thing was like all the women in the intimate scenes with girls were actually replaced with Loredo's mother, right? So it was this kind of like.
This was a very cool way to encourage people to actually buy the game, not to pirate it.
Yeah. Well, especially the first one, because you couldn't really proceed. And they were like, I remember there were people like, oh, I cannot proceed. Like, I always have game over. It's like, and people were like, well, dude, you have a pirated game, you know that. So yeah.
Okay, so I guess we can finish. We got our reward. We defeated Kairan. We talked a lot about localization. It was super cool to chat with you, Mikołaj.
Yeah, I hope you liked it. I wasn't too boring.
No, I hope everyone liked it. So thank you very much, and guys, I guess we will see you next week for the Witcher 3 anniversary stream. See ya.
Thank you very much. Bye.